Hello, this is Richard Jacobs from Speakeasy Marketing, and today I want you to envision a young girl talking to her dad, who's a lawyer, and she says, "Daddy, where do leads come from?" And her dad, the lawyer, says, "Why, they come from the internet, my sweetheart." "What's the internet, Dad?" "Well, where in the internet?" "Well, Google, or the internet." "Where is Google? Where is the internet, Dad?" "Who tells you this?" "Well, clients tell me it. When they call, we ask them how they found our law firm, and they say, the internet, or they say Google." "Yes, but where in Google, and where in the internet, Dad?" "Well, my dear, that's a good question. We don't know." Have you ever imagined this conversation? Have you ever had this conversation when you thought about your leads? Well, it's a very good question, isn't it? So I'm going to give you some insights into where I see leads come from, and I think it'll shed some light on how to get more of them, how to get more clients. So one situation that came up recently is I had one of my clients send me a report of the last 3 months of leads that he's been getting, and he labeled where he thought that they came from. So most of them were labeled internet, many of them were labeled AVO, and some of them were labeled from Google AdWords, Google pay-per-click. So I thought it was really interesting that he sent me this, and I told him I appreciated it, and I analyzed the data. And I saw that a lot of the leads he credited as coming from AVO, we had tracked as coming through his website. So I called him up, and I talked about the leads, and I said, I see a lot of these leads you say are coming from AVO, but we sent them to you in the reports, so why would you say they're coming from AVO if we sent them to you because they called the number on the website? And the attorney said, well, they told me they came from AVO. And I said, okay, that's fine. They may have started their journey there, or they may have gone through AVO and looked at reviews, but then they came to your website because that's where the actual call was made. So I said, think about that. Yes, AVO played a role, maybe a huge role, but your website also played a role, and the stuff on it, and they would have reviewed it, and that's what made them call you, not AVO. Because if it was AVO that made them call you alone, they would have called directly from AVO, and they would have tracked it. So why did they come to the website? And he said, very interesting. I didn't realize that. So I wanted to show you that leads don't necessarily just come from a particular place. And this makes it difficult for you to track where they come from. A lot of attorneys tell me, well, we ask all the leads how they find us. And most of them say the internet or Google. They don't really know. They try to ask them which keyword searches they put in or what sites did they look at. And it sounds odd, but a lot of people just don't know. Many of the times when I search the web, I'll get pulled in one direction or another, and I'll forget what site I'm on, or I'll get distracted because the web's extremely distracting, and I may go through several sites. Or if I'm researching something, let's say I want to hire a lawyer, or I want to go eat, or I want to do anything, I typically do several searches, go to several different sites, and eventually something will prompt me to make a call and to find out more, or maybe to email the website. But it's never a one-shot deal. So I want you to remember this when you're trying to get leads for your practice. What does this tell you to do? Well, it tells you one form of marketing is probably not nearly as good as multiple forms of marketing. Why? Because let's say you only had a presence on AVO and no website. Well, you may not get a lot of the calls that my client got because the website couldn't finish them off, Let's say you have a website but no AVO presence, or no Yelp presence, or no Google Plus reviews, or no YouTube videos. Well, all of those could be contributing places where a potential client can see you. And I know from my own experience and from my clients' experiences, the more places that someone shows up in, the more it feels to the potential client like this guy is everywhere. And they get more confidence in you, and they're more likely to call you and hire you because you show up in this place and that place, and YouTube and AVO and Google. And again, this guy is everywhere, that feeling. That feeling lends a lot of confidence to prospects, and it makes them call you more often. Yes, reviews play a role. Yes, the design of your website plays a role. Yes, many factors do, but this is one factor that is more easily controllable than most. So again, what it tells me, and what I think it should tell you, and what my experience confirms, is that you should have marketing in multiple places and not just depend on one area. Let's talk a little bit more about where leads come from. So I've looked at what's called Google Analytics many hundreds of times. That's like an ant farm for your website. It shows you where calls come in from. It shows you what pages people entered your site on, what pages they went through, and which pages made them leave, what keywords they typed in, how long they stayed, a whole bunch of factors. So what does this tell you? Well, there are a million things to analyze, but I can tell you a few of the distinct signals I've seen that'll be helpful. So signal number one, the 80-20 rule. About 80% of all your leads will come in through a few pages of your website. Not just the home page, even though that'll be one of them, but there'll be the home page, often the attorney profile page, and 1, 2, or 3 article pages that have a particular article on a particular subject. On all my client sites, hundreds of them, this is what I've seen, the 80-20 rule. Most of the pages of your website are rarely visited, but there's a few juicy ones. So if you want to get more clients, guess which pages you should work on first. And yes, one of them is the home page, but it's not the only page that people will visit on your site. So that's one thing I've seen. Another thing I've seen too is how long do they stay on your site? So there may be a ton of people coming to a certain page on your site, but the average time a visitor stays on that page may be 10 seconds. So that tells me that that page is not very effective. It's not getting people to stay there. A sweet spot would be a minute or more on a page. If you can get someone to spend just a minute or more, likely that page is answering their questions and it's compelling and it's going to get them to call more often. So there's another hint for you. Another thing to pay attention to, instead of, oh, am I on page 1 for this keyword or for that keyword, is how many visitors a day do I get from Google? The more visitors you get from Google search traffic, the more likely you're going to get phone calls. The less, the less. This is independent of your rankings. So if you're number 1 for divorce lawyer Tampa, but you only get 2 visits a day to your website, it doesn't matter. You're going to get no business. If you're nowhere on the first page for all the keywords that you think are valuable, but you're getting 50 or 100 visits a day, which some of my clients are and beyond, and you're getting calls every day, who cares if you're number 1 for divorce lawyer Tampa, for instance? You're getting lots of business. So here's another part of where leads come from. The keywords, and this is leading right into it. I've seen almost every attorney thinks that there's these few commercial keywords that will get them all the success. Oh, if I could just be number 1 for auto accident lawyer Pasadena, or number 1 for DWI lawyer New York, my problems will be solved and I'll get lots of clients. Well, that's not where I've seen that leads come from. Here is where I've seen they come from. So someone gets into a legal issue, divorce, need for estate planning, bankruptcy, criminal, DUI, immigration, whatever it is, does not matter, auto accident, etc. What they'll first do is they'll search on question keywords. That's what I call them. So these are like long strings of text that are typed into Google. You know, oh, if I own a business and I file bankruptcy, will I have to dissolve it or sell it? If I've been married for 25 years, how much alimony will I have to pay my wife? Or blew a .16 in New York, will I go to jail? Or, want to bring my wife over from Pakistan, what kind of visa is best? These are the types of things people type in when they have a legal situation. And this is before they've even thought, I better hire a lawyer. They just have questions first. So they'll search Google with all these questions. And what I've seen is they don't just search once, but they'll search 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 times over 10 different sites until they finally get to the realization that, you know what, I better hire a lawyer for this. Now they may be inclined to put in immigration lawyer Los Angeles or auto accident attorney Dallas, but only at this point after they've done many searches. So if they call you, was it your website that was responsible for converting this person? Or was it all these past searches and all these questions answered by other attorneys? And now another thing to put into your mind is, where do you want to show up when someone's searching? Do you want to show up early on for question keywords, for thousands of them where there's very little competition because many attorneys don't have articles that address questions? Or do you want to show up at the very end in the most hyper-competitive dog-eat-dog fight-to-the-death pit for these commercial keywords? Well, I know I'd like to show up earlier on, and my clients that show up earlier for all these question keywords tend to get a lot more calls and a lot more business because of it, and they don't worry about being number one for these few commercial keywords. So I know that we've ranged a lot over this podcast, and I hope this gives you some insight on the famous question of, Daddy, where do leads come from? If you need any help with your marketing, call SpeakeasyMarketingInc.com through the website. The direct number is 888-225-8594. Thank you.